Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the sort of processes that were prevalent, say, 30 plus years ago in terms of firing people. Now, there's recently just someone I know had mentioned that the HR department in this it's a multinational firm, they must, whether they employ a third party or do it themselves, but they must have somebody cruising all the social media accounts of their employees, because one employee made some comment about that refugees most of the refugees are actually not refugees. They're just people trying to scam a free ride on the Western welfare system. And so, I wouldn't have thought that was particularly controversial. I would have thought it was more a statement of the obvious than anything. But in the super woke corporations where you've got diversity and inclusion Marxist fanatics working and being paid to do a job that is nothing other than to crush white Western society and demoralize white Western society, and they're the equivalent of the Soviet secret police or the KGB or the Stasi in East Germany. They're in my view, in ideological terms, they're the equivalent of that. But anyway, they must be monitoring people's social media accounts because, or maybe someone informed. So this guy made this, I think, a relatively innocuous posting on, I don't know what it was, one of the social media platforms. And it was decided that's wrongthink, and wrongthink is going to, you're out of a job, buddy, you're out of here. Now, I would suspect he'll sue, and I hope he does. But the issue here is that that some radical activist, screaming radical activist with mega, victim chip on shoulder attitude, is deciding who gets fired and why. Now, the guy, as it's reported to me, I don't know the person who was actually fired, but as is reported to me, this guy was a good, his performance reviews have all suggested he was very good, above average, that sort of thing. And so he's not the sort of guy that you'd fire. Now, I think the main thing was that he was a straight white guy. I think that was the real reason. I think if it had been a black lesbian had said it, they wouldn't have bothered. I think it was only because he was a straight white guy they decided to take offence at this tweet and turn it into a pretext to fire him. Now, he's quite a skilled guy from what I'm told. So I don't know how tough it'll be to find another job. But is there a sort of a Bush Telegraph network where all these angry lesbians get together and inform on the straight white male who's got wrongthink? Maybe they'll quietly, there'll be a whispering sort of thing going, because nearly all the human resource departments have got these diversity and inclusion officers and radical leftist Marxist HR officers. So it may be that he'll have a tough time finding another job, and so I doubly hope that he sues the crap out of his employer. You think there'd be somebody who had sufficient oversight there, like oversight of these radical activists, and say, hey, you can't fire somebody for that. And if it's illegal, fine. If it transgresses our corporate policies, then that's an issue to discuss. But the idea is to summarily and arbitrarily fire somebody for wrongthink, that's it's free speech is protected, in part anyway. Free speech is protected in Australia, so as indeed in a number of other Western countries. So governments are frantically running around like the EU trying to change the law to classify anything they don't like as being hate speech or wrongthink and so on. But how was firing people? Certainly, when I sort of very first entered the workforce, I ended up because I understood how to do computer programming, which was a huge big deal back then. You know, just weren't many programs around, and I understood computers. So I was put in as a supervisor of a department probably 5 years earlier than really I should have at that time. But anyway, so I've sort of got a front seat in a lot of discussions about should somebody get fired. Now, in those days, it wasn't long ago. I mean, ideologically, it could be a million years ago, but it wasn't that long ago that you know, the idea of the Great Depression, World War II, the civil rights, you know, all that sort of coalesced into a wider miasma that you couldn't just go around firing people because and welfare was around, not to the extent it later became, but it was around. But you couldn't fire people because what would they do? The idea of someone on the street sort of begging was again, you know, the Great Depression was still in the minds of a lot of the people older than me. I don't remember that, but people older than me, you know, most of the guys around the table would have been, oh shit, you know, 15 to 30 plus years older than me. So anyway, just looking at I'm thinking one, it's quite fresh, or it seems almost fresh in my memory, but there's a guy who they were talking about getting rid of him. I can't remember the reason, but I remember the reasoning, as it were, where they discussed would they fire this guy. And somebody said, well, Billy Bob, you know, he's got a wife and 3 kids. Now, in those days, there were a lot of dependent families. The purchasing power of the paycheck permitted it, where today it doesn't. So this guy's got a wife, a dependent wife, and 3 children. So this is mentioned. As soon as that's mentioned, the whole nature and course of the conversation changes. It's gone from, well, maybe we need to fire this guy, to suddenly, no, we can't fire him. He's got a wife and a family. We can't fire, because if we fire him, we don't know how long it's going to take him, you know, the job, you know, his wife and his children will suffer, and we just can't have that. That's just simply not an acceptable outcome. And it's instantly taken off the radar. So, well, what else can we do? We can move Billy Bob to another department. Maybe we can, you know, give him more training, or maybe we give him a stern talking to, or maybe we give him a warning, or, you know, they went through every other option apart from firing him. Now he had some sort of supervisory role, so let's you know, we can demote him. No, we can't do that because he's got a dependent wife and family. So they're not prepared to fire him or demote him or take any money away from him. It's just not on. Just won't have it. And so they looked at really every other thing. Now there are also differences in attitudes to you know, if you called somebody a name, then nobody would bother. If you went running, the manager said, you know, Billy Bob called me, you know, a nutcase, or so like the manager would just get lost, you know, get out of my face, don't bother me with nonsense. So it's other things just didn't matter. You couldn't say offensive words. They just didn't count. You would, hey, you're a grown up, now get over it and stop being silly. And by the way, are you doing your job? I mean, so that would be the type of response you'd get if you went running around telling tales like that. Now I remember there were people, sometimes there would be people who would have disagreements and they'd have a scuffle or even you know, a bit of a punch up or something like that. That was deemed as you know, hey guys, you can't do that in the workplace, and they'd be told to there'd be a warning next time, you know, you are out of a job. I don't know if that was ever enforced. I doubt it somehow, but it was kind of viewed as one of the things that would happen in the workplace. It wasn't desirable. It shouldn't be tolerated. But was it a sacking offense at the time? Was it a sacking offence? If somebody brazenly attacked another, particularly if it caused injury, that was a sacking offence. But if it just 2 people having a dispute and having a bit of a scuffle or a shoving match, that wasn't considered it. Nor was threatening somebody. You know, the threats used to go around. I don't think any of them were really serious. Some of them might have been, but that was viewed as, hey, just grow up, Billy Bob, and stop running to me with, you know, telling silly tales and that sort of. So that was that. Stealing was considered quite serious, even low-level stealing. Stealing the firm's paperclip or the firm's pen or something. That was said. Oh, that was hey, take it easy there. So stealing. Well, I know you call it stealing. You put the pen in your pocket. You're walking around. You forget it. But this sort of thing was considered. There was someone in the office of this place who had been using the company's postage stamps. This is in the days of posting letters, postage stamps, and had been taking the firm's postage stamps to post their own letters. Now, this isn't the days when the stamp was worth 5 cents or something, so it was hardly grand theft or anything like that. But it was still treated quite seriously, and the person was fired, and in some cases even for what I would have the equivalent of stealing a chocolate bar. And the police were being called, which I thought was, as a kid, I thought that's way over the top. And to me, it would have been, well, the chocolate, the chocolate bar cost 5 cents. Repay the 5 cents, and I wouldn't have seen it as a police matter, but sometimes it was, and I was quite surprised. So people who, there was some women were discussing a firing some women, particularly, and there was a lot of troublemaker women there, but there was, real sort of shit stirrers amongst the female staff at this particular place that I'm thinking of. And but instead of firing these women, that they would simply be treated as maybe not mentally up to the challenge of holding down a job, and they wouldn't be treated seriously. And if they did say something that had to be investigated, the proof and the evidence better be completely there. And so it went. But again, instead of firing them, they'd say, "Well, she's got no husband. There's no one there. Her mother's died. So she's on her own. There's no one to look out for her. We can't fire her. So we'll have to move her to another department, or we'll just have to give her a job that's so irrelevant, and where she can't fuck it up, and where she's not dealing with other people, and that'll sort it out." So they were, again, in some cases, moving heaven and earth to invent jobs, even, or to reclassify them, or to move people around. And there was one job where the person had to really be sitting on their own all day. They had hardly any interaction other than maybe lunchtime. They went into the staff amenities room, and they put a woman in there rather than have her anywhere else where she could make trouble. But the lengths they went to find something for her. Now, the reality was that women who were like that just weren't treated seriously. They'd be given irrelevant jobs and sort of kept out of the way, if you like. Today, though, these people are the HR managers and diversity inclusion directors, and the people that monitor the online postings by the straight white males. These are the angry victims that are determined to turn themselves into vicious predators, trying to attack straight white men at every opportunity. So there was a complete difference there to firing people, and or even they'd say, "Well, we can't fire Jimmy Jack. He's too old. No one will give him another job, so we just can't fire him. It's just not on." And I was sort of, as a kid, young guy, just looking at this, I was, that's fine. Now, there was more was expected if you were the classic straight white male, and you had a good education, you were a sort of senior guy, or you had some sort of responsible job. More was expected of you. So women were seen as they didn't have to be as responsible as men. And they could be humoured, and isn't that terrible, Billie Jean, that he said that to you? Now you go back and do your job, and you be a good girl, and that sort of thing. So women were viewed as not being able to cope with responsibility, and therefore they weren't given responsibility, which meant that they could do a lot of things that a man would have got fired for, but because, oh, it's only a woman, like, we can't fire her for that. So the idea of equality and supervisory jobs and these sorts of things, they were only given at the time to women who were prepared to accept responsibility. If the woman wasn't prepared to accept responsibility, then she wouldn't get any supervisory type roles or promotions. So for the women who wanted both, I want to be a victim, I want to be irresponsible, I just want to be a little girly, but I want the benefits of the executive job, then that wasn't considered an acceptable thing. Whereas today it is. A woman can be 100% victim, 100% oppressed, and still expect to be president of the Grand National Bank. So that's the difference there. So looking at the firing, just on there, people are fired for, in my view today, the most trivial reasons, and I'm quite astonished the more I hear about. And the same could be said for people not getting hired. You're not getting hired because you're a straight white male. I mean, what? So whereas back then there was great care, as in a social conscience type of care, about not firing people. I mean, one guy they decided to get rid of, and my boss's boss came to me and said, we've decided we're going to get rid of Billy Bob, but he's got no one to look out for him, or he's on his own. He doesn't live with his parents, that sort of thing. So and he wasn't an old guy. He'd be early 20s, I suppose, as I was then. And so I was told, well, make sure he gets an extra month's pay in his termination pay packet. Also, there'd be things like younger people who are still living with their parents. That would factor in. They were considered safer to fire than people who were living on their own. And it was always, the question always came up: has this person got anyone to look out for them? Other family members or parents or whatever. In some cases they'd say, well, it's okay, to fire him because his parents are rich. In another case, they'd say, no, his parents are penniless or they're dead or whatever. So no, we have to try and do something for him. So that was the social conscience. Now I don't see that social conscience around today. There may be a social conscience in the sense of ideological victimhood. Well, we can't fire her; she's a black lesbian. So there may be that, but there isn't that social conscience about, will someone be all right? Because there was genuine concern back then. Genuine concern. Will they be all right? Will they manage? And the company had a social obligation, as everyone back then seemed to see it, a social obligation to make sure they do okay. You've been a task today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.